Welcome to the deep dive. This week, we're going to try to tackle the world of logic and philosophical arguments
Oh, yeah.
based on all your recent readings and notes.
I think it'll be fun to unpack these ideas together because,
Yeah.
even like seasoned philosophers,
Yeah.
even we get tripped up by this stuff sometimes.
It's true. Logic can feel like a mental obstacle course.
Yeah.
But that's what makes it so rewarding to learn.
Yeah.
Your notes mention some terms like propositions and enthymemes, which sound pretty intimidating.
Oh, yeah.
So how about we start with something simple?
Okay.
Like, what is an argument?
Okay.
I feel like people throw that word around all the time without really understanding what it means
Yeah.
in a philosophical context.
You're absolutely right. In everyday conversation, an argument usually means,
Right.
a heated disagreement or a shouting match.
Right.
But in philosophy, it's much more structured.
Okay.
It's about presenting reasons to support a claim,
Okay.
trying to persuade someone to accept your point of view.
So it's not about winning or losing,
Exactly.
but about building a case
Yeah.
with solid reasoning.
Exactly. And that's where those propositions you mentioned come in.
Right.
You can think of them as like the building blocks of any argument.
Okay, so break that down for me.
Sure.
What exactly is a proposition?
A proposition is a statement that must be either true or false.
Okay.
It's the kind of statement that you can agree or disagree with, like the earth is flat
Right.
or coffee is delicious.
Got it. So close the door wouldn't be a proposition.
Exactly.
Because it's a command,
Right.
not a statement you can argue about.
You're catching on quickly.
Okay.
The way these propositions are arranged is what gives an argument its structure.
Okay. I remember seeing something about premises and conclusions in my notes.
Yeah.
How do those fit in?
Think of an argument like a house.
Okay.
The conclusion is the roof,
Okay.
the main point you're trying to make.
Right.
And the premises are the walls that hold up the roof, the reasons that you give to support that conclusion.
I like that analogy. So a strong argument has both a sturdy roof,
Yes.
a clear conclusion, and strong walls.
Yes.
Well-supported premises to keep it from collapsing.
Exactly. Now imagine building a house with some walls missing.
Okay.
It might look like a house at first glance,
Right.
but it's not going to be very stable.
Right.
And that's where we get to those sneaky enthymemes.
Ah, yes, those mysterious enthymemes.
Yeah.
They sounded a bit like a logic puzzle.
They are a bit like that. An enthymeme is an argument with a hidden premise or conclusion.
Okay.
It's like that house with the missing walls.
Okay.
Something is not explicitly stated,
Right.
but it's implied for the argument to work.
Can you give me a real-world example? I'm trying to picture how this plays out in conversation.
Sure. Let's say someone says, of course she's a great artist. She went to Yale.
Okay.
The conclusion that she's a great artist is clearly stated, but the premise that anyone who went to Yale is a great artist is hidden. It's not explicitly said, but it's assumed for the argument to make sense.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So by uncovering those hidden premises,
Yes.
we can see if this argument actually holds up.
Yeah.
It's like being a logic detective,
Yeah,
searching for clues.
you got it. And explicating enthymemes.
Okay.
That is clearly identifying and writing out all the parts can be incredibly helpful,
Okay.
both for analyzing others' arguments and for strengthening your own.
So wait, does that mean we can use enthymemes strategically? It sounds a bit sneaky, like a rhetorical Jedi mind trick.
Well, it can be used for good or for bad.
Okay.
Like most tools of persuasion,
Right.
sometimes leaving a premise unstated can make your argument more impactful,
Okay.
especially if it's something your audience already agrees with.
I see. It's like planting a seed of thought without being too obvious about it.
Exactly. But it can also be used to manipulate.
Right.
To slip in a questionable premise without drawing attention to it.
Oh, okay.
That's why it's so important to be able to spot those hidden assumptions. Right.
And evaluate them critically.
Okay, so we've got these basic building blocks of arguments.
All right.
The propositions.
Yes.
And we've learned to watch out for those sneaky missing pieces in enthymemes.
Yeah.
Now, how do we actually determine if an argument is any good?
That's where we get into the concepts of validity and soundness,
Okay.
which are all about the logical structure of an argument and the truth of its premises.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me more about how we can judge those arguments and separate the strong from the weak.
All right, let's do it. Welcome back to the deep dive. I'm ready to delve into those concepts of validity and soundness,
Okay.
which are key to evaluating the strength of an argument.
Yes, let's unpack those terms.
Okay.
From what I gathered in my notes, it seems like validity has to do with the logical structure of an argument,
Right.
while soundness is about whether the premises are actually true.
That's a great observation. You've pretty much nailed it.
Okay, good.
Let's start with validity.
An argument is considered valid if the conclusion follows logically from the premises.
Okay.
In other words, if the premises are true, then the conclusion must be true
Okay.
based on like the way the argument is structured.
Okay, so even if the premises are completely bonkers,
Uh-huh.
the argument could still be considered valid
Yes.
if the conclusion logically follows from those crazy premises.
Exactly. Validity is all about the relationship between the premises and the conclusion,
Okay.
not about the truth of the premises themselves.
Okay, so can you give me an example of a valid argument with false premises? I'm trying to wrap my head around this.
Sure, how about this? All unicorns can fly.
Okay.
Rainbow is a unicorn.
Okay.
Therefore, rainbow can fly.
Okay.
Obviously, unicorns don't exist,
Right.
so the premises are false.
Right.
But the conclusion follows logically from those premises.
Right.
If unicorns could fly and Rainbow was a unicorn, then she would be able to fly.
Okay, that makes sense. So the argument is valid,
Right.
even though it's based on a fantasy world of flying unicorns.
Exactly.
But it wouldn't be sound right,
Right.
because soundness requires true premises.
You got it. Soundness is the gold standard.
Okay.
A sound argument is both valid, meaning it has that logical structure,
Okay.
and D, its premises are actually true.
Uh-huh.
So it's like a double check.
Okay.
You need both the logic and D, the facts,
Right.
to be on solid ground.
That makes sense.
Yes.
It's like building a house on a solid foundation.
Yes.
You need both strong walls,
Yeah.
a valid structure,
Yes.
and a stable ground.
Yes.
True premises for the house to stand.
I love that analogy. It really captures the essence of soundness.
Okay.
A sound argument is one that you can trust because it's built on both logical reasoning
Uh-huh.
and factual accuracy.
Okay, so we've got validity and soundness down.
Yes.
Now, I remember my notes mentioning different types of reasoning,
Mm-hmm.
deductive and inductive.
Right.
Can you shed some light on those?
Absolutely. These are two fundamental approaches to reasoning. In deductive reasoning, you start with general principles
Okay.
and apply them to specific cases.
Okay.
If the premises are true, the conclusion is guaranteed to be true.
Okay.
It's like that classic example, all men are mortal.
Right.
Socrates is a man.
Uh.
Therefore, Socrates is mortal.
Right.
There's no room for doubt or probability there.
So deductive reasoning is all about certainty.
Yes.
Working from those established truths to reach specific conclusions.
Uh-huh.
It feels very mathematical,
Yeah.
like a logical equation.
It does have that mathematical precision, and it's often used in fields like mathematics and logic itself.
Right.
Now, inductive reasoning is a bit different.
Okay.
It's about drawing general conclusions
Okay.
based on specific observations.
So it's like making an educated guess
Yeah,
based on the evidence you have.
exactly. Inductive reasoning deals with probability,
Okay.
not absolute certainty.
Right.
For example, if you observe that every swan you've ever seen is white,
Right.
you might conclude that all swans are white.
But as we know, there are black swans in Australia.
Right.
So your conclusion, while reasonable based on your experience,
Uh-huh.
wouldn't be universally true.
That's a good reminder that inductive reasoning can be powerful, but it's also important to be open to revising our conclusions
Yeah.
as new evidence emerges.
Yeah.
It feels like this type of reasoning is at play in scientific research a lot.
It is. Scientists use inductive reasoning to form hypotheses based on observations and experiments.
Okay.
And while these hypotheses can be highly probable,
Right.
they're always subject to further testing and refinement.
So in a way, both deductive and inductive reasoning play important roles in our understanding of the world.
Yeah.
Deductive reasoning provides that solid logical framework,
Yes.
while inductive reasoning allows us to explore and expand our knowledge based on experience and observation.
You've summarized it perfectly.
Okay.
And as you continue to explore the world of logic and argumentation,
Yeah,
you'll find that both types of reasoning are constantly at work.
right. Shaping how we think, make decisions, and understand the world around us.
It's incredible to think about how these fundamental concepts underpin so much of our thinking,
It is.
even when we're not consciously aware of them.
It really is. And once you start recognizing these patterns of reasoning, you'll start to see them everywhere,
Yeah.
from political debates to everyday conversations.
I'm already feeling like I have a new lens through which to view the world.
That's great.
Now, speaking of seeing things in new ways, my notes mention something called Venn diagrams as a tool for analyzing arguments.
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell me more about those?
Yes, Venn diagrams.
Yeah.
They're a great way to visually represent the relationships between categories and propositions,
Okay.
making those abstract logical connections more concrete and easier to grasp.
From what I remember, they involve those overlapping circles, right?
Right.
But I'm a bit fuzzy on how they actually help us analyze arguments.
Sure, imagine you're trying to analyze the argument. All dogs are mammals.
Okay.
Fido is a dog.
Uh-huh.
Therefore, Fido is a mammal.
Right.
To represent this visually with a Venn diagram, you'd draw a big circle for mammals
Okay.
and a smaller circle inside it for dogs.
Okay.
Since all dogs are mammals,
Right.
since Fido is a dog, you'd place an X representing Fido within the dog circle.
Right.
Because that circle is fully contained within the mammal circle.
Okay.
The diagram visually confirms that Fido is also a mammal.
Okay. I'm starting to see how those circles can help us visualize the relationships between categories.
Yeah.
It's like a map of the argument,
Exactly.
showing how the different parts connect.
Exactly. And Venn diagrams can be especially helpful for analyzing those tricky end themes we talked about earlier.
Oh, okay.
By drawing the diagram based on the stated premises and conclusion, you might notice a gap,
Right.
a missing circle or connection that needs to be filled in by an unstated premise.
Right.
It's like the diagram is a detective,
Yeah.
helping you uncover the hidden clues of the argument.
This is making me think about all those times I've gotten lost in an argument, unable to see the flaws in the reasoning.
Right.
I feel like Venn diagrams could be a great tool for untangling those complex arguments
They can.
and seeing through those rhetorical smokescreens.
They absolutely can be.
Yeah.
And as you get more comfortable with them,
Right.
you'll find that even those seemingly simple circles
Right.
can unlock a deeper understanding of philosophical arguments and the way we think.
This is all so fascinating.
Yeah.
I'm ready to dive into some more examples and see how Venn diagrams can help us analyze real-world arguments.
Oh,
Are you ready to unleash the power of circles?
I'm always ready for some circle-based logic.
Okay.
Let's explore some more examples and see how Venn diagrams can help us become sharper thinkers and more discerning listeners.
Welcome back. I'm still reeling from the power of those Venn diagrams. It's amazing how a simple visual tool can unlock so much clarity in an argument.
They really are powerful, aren't they? It's like they gill your brain away to see the logic, making those abstract concepts suddenly click.
Exactly. But all this talk about diagrams and logical structures makes me wonder about the bigger picture. Like, why do we argue in the first place? What's the point of all this logical maneuvering?
That's a great question, and it gets to the heart of why logic is so relevant to our lives.
Yeah.
Arguments aren't just abstract exercises.
Right.
They're how we engage with the world,
Right.
how we try to persuade others, make decisions, and even understand ourselves.
So it's not just about being right or wrong,
Right.
but about using reason to navigate the complexities of life.
Precisely. And to do that effectively, it's important to understand the different purposes arguments can serve.
Okay.
Sometimes we argue to convince someone to change their mind,
Right.
other times to clarify our own thinking, and sometimes just to explore different perspectives.
That makes sense. It's like there are different types of arguments for different occasions.
Yeah.
But how do we know when someone is actually trying to argue versus just explaining something?
Right.
I feel like those two can get blurred sometimes.
They can, but there's a key distinction.
Oh,
An argument aims to persuade you of something
okay.
that might be controversial or uncertain.
Mhm.
The conclusion is the point of contention,
Right.
and the premises are the reasons given to convince you of that conclusion.
So like a debate about climate change. Both sides are presenting arguments trying to sway the audience to their viewpoint.
Exactly. An explanation, on the other hand, aims to clarify something that's already accepted as true.
Right.
The conclusion is a known fact,
Okay.
and the explanation provides the reasons or causes for that fact.
So explaining how photosynthesis works.
Right.
We already accept that plants use sunlight to make food, but the explanation tells us how that process happens
Exact.
at a chemical level.
Right.
It's not trying to convince us that plants do this. It's helping us understand the mechanisms behind it.
You've got it.
Okay.
And recognizing the difference between an argument and an explanation is crucial for critical thinking. It helps us determine the speaker's intent and evaluate the information accordingly.
This is making me think about all those marketing campaigns
Oh, yeah.
that try to disguise themselves as educational content.
Right. Yeah.
They'll present facts and research,
Uh-huh.
but really they're just trying to persuade you to buy their product.
That's a great example.
Hmm.
And it highlights why understanding the structure and purpose of arguments is so important in today's world.
Right.
We're bombarded with information all the time.
Right.
And knowing how to discern a genuine attempt to inform
Right.
from a veiled attempt to persuade
Yeah.
can be incredibly empowering.
It's like having a mental shield to deflect those manipulative arguments and focus on the information that truly matters.
Exactly. And that's where those logical fallacies we briefly mentioned earlier come in.
Right.
These are common errors in reasoning
Right.
that can make a bad argument seem convincing.
Right. I remember reading about the ad hominem fallacy,
Yeah.
where someone attacks the person making the argument
Right.
rather than addressing the argument itself.
Exactly.
It's like saying, you can't trust anything she says she's wearing Crocs.
That's a perfect example.
Yeah.
And there are so many other fallacies out there,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the straw man fallacy, where you misrepresent your opponent's argument to make it easier to attack, or the bandwagon fallacy, where you argue that something must be true because a lot of people believe it.
It's a bit scary how easily we can fall prey to these fallacies,
I know.
especially when they're presented in a clever or emotionally charged way.
Right.
It's like they exploit our cognitive biases, making us less likely to think critically.
They do. That's why familiarizing yourself with these common fallacies is so important.
Okay.
It's like having a cheat sheet for spotting bad logic and avoiding those rhetorical traps.
So it's like learning the rules of the game so you can play it strategically and not get caught out by those sneaky moves.
Exactly.
It almost feels like a superpower.
It is a kind of superpower.
Yeah.
The power of discerning thought, of seeing through faulty reasoning, and making decisions based on sound evidence and logic.
I love that. The power of discerning thought.
Yes.
That's something we can all strive for.
Absolutely. And remember, this journey into the world of logic and argumentation is just beginning.
Right.
The more you explore these concepts, the more you'll appreciate the intricate ways our minds work and the power of reasoned discourse.
Well, I'll have to say this deep dive has been an incredible adventure. We've gone from those basic building blocks of arguments to understanding how they function in the real world, and even how to spot those sneaky logical fallacies.
That's great.
I feel like I have a whole new set of mental tools.
It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
Yeah.
And remember, the most important takeaway is to stay curious, keep questioning, and never stop honing those critical thinking skills.
Beautifully said. So there you have it, folks, a crash course in logic and argumentation, from propositions to empty memes to Venn diagrams and beyond. We hope you've enjoyed the journey. And remember, keep those logic muscles flexed and never stop exploring the fascinating world of ideas. Until next time, happy reasoning.